Hey there, friends and enemies, JoPa here again, and today I've got another Destiny 2 Titan build for you guys. This one focusing on trace rifles and dealing as much damage to bosses as quickly as you possibly can. This is really good for new content like the Court of Oryx or even Rushdown in the Guardian Games playlist. I feel like either one of those is where this build will really shine, but it can work elsewhere as well. It has a lot of versatility that I do like and can do a lot of different things. Plus, it's using one of my old favorite exotics that I haven't used in quite some time with Microcosm. This is a very fun trace rifle with the current artifact mods. It is incredibly effective. It does insane damage. It synergizes really well with this build and the super, and I highly recommend trying it out if you have not done so already. I also was fortunate to get a Karaneos with overflow and jolting feedback. Finally, this one is tremendous. It does insane work, especially again with the current artifact perks, as well as how good Arc is this season. I'm also using the Boondoggle just to check it out. New weapon that I very much enjoy, a Tex Mechanica submachine gun. That is very fun, but you can swap this out depending on what type of content you're using. If you want to use an AR, scout rifle, whatever the case may be. As far as the build itself, it is going to utilize the Curse of the Falling Star as the exotic armor with the Prismatic Titan and of course Thunder Crash. This is so I can do as much damage as I possibly can and then follow it up with even more damage from Microcosm. They synergize really well in my opinion. The other nice thing about Microcosm is you can get Transcendence in just about like 3 to 4 seconds if you are using it to melt a boss. So essentially you can pop your super, get the buff as long as you have amplified, for example, and with the artifact, I'll explain that in a little bit. Then start doing damage with your Microcosm and you will be Transcendent almost instantly. Pop your Transcendent and then you'll have your super before you know it as well. I'm using Rally Barricade, whatever jump you want. Frenzy Blade, I'll explain why in a little bit. Then we've got the Suppressor Grenade. You can swap this out for whatever grenade you want. I just like this one, especially when I'm using it for suppressing enemies. It is pretty nice, especially against Overload champions and stuff like that. Then we've got the Knockout perk. This is going to heal me. This is the main source of healing with this build. And so I'm going to use it with Consecration. So you get the 3 charges, you get Consecration all the time, and essentially you can do a bunch of damage with the ignitions. Now, this is one that it's not really necessary for the build. It's just something that I like to do. And when I'm getting Transcendence a lot, being able to pop this almost infinitely is pretty fun for me as well. It's one that I know has been overused in the past, but even after the nerfs is still very effective. Fragments, we've got Grace. This is really important, so that way when I'm using my kinetic weapons, like the Microcosm, I get that bonus Transcendence energy. Defeating targets with my super grants me and my ally bonus Transcendence. That's not really as important. Then we got Purpose. This is so I can always be generating bolt charge with the orbs of power that I'm generating. Facet of protection, so that way when I'm surrounded I gain more damage resistance, which is very nice. Then we got Ruin. This is for the solar ignition specifically for Consecration, and then Facet of Dominance, so that way my Void will grenade that I'm using will also suppress. I can also use Arc instead and then Jolt, but that's just my preference. From there we've got Arc Siphon and Kinetic Siphon, as well as Heavy Ammo Finder. In the Court of Oryx specifically, you get enough heavy ammo that you don't really need to worry too much, whereas in other activities that's very, very important. Heavy-handed melee kickstart is also very nice. It does feel like the Strand melee takes a long time to recharge, so that's why you're going to want that to have the melee kickstart. Then we got damage resist of whatever activity you're taking on. Kinetic reserves is also very nice. Kinetic weapon surge ×2. Once again, this is very nice for, especially if you swap out for primary kinetic that's doing more damage. Better Already is incredibly helpful as a bonus source of healing as well. And then time dilation, distribution, and then Reaper. I really want to be generating as many of those orbs as possible in order to try and maximize how often I'm getting my super, and that's something that's very, very important for this build. As far as the important artifact mods that I'm using, I definitely want limit break, so casting a super while you are critically wounded, or have an elemental buff matching your super grants a period of increased super damage. So this is why you want bolt charge and or amplified at all times in order to cast your super and have that be extremely effective. And then also defibrillating blast is nice if you're taking on champions, but otherwise it's not really all that necessary in comparison with some other builds. Harsh refraction, so all the trace rifle perks. We've got Beam Medic as well, and then Overload Trace Rifles if you have Overload Champions. All very nice for not only healing yourself with the Trace Rifle, especially using it consistently. Elemental Siphon, rapid final blows with kinetic weapon or a weapon matching your equipped super, create an elemental pickup. So basically all of my weapons will utilize this. And so that's why I'm generating a lot of those elemental pickups, the arc traces that will fly to me at all times. It's very nice. Flashover, while I'm not using Storm's Keep or anything like that, Bolt Charge and the amplified lightning bolts are still insane. Then we've got Dielectric is also nice, so defeating arc debuff targets grants Bolt Charge. Because I have jolting feedback on my Trace Rifle, I am doing that constantly. If you get the boost, rapidly defeating arc debuff targets spawns overpower and heals a small portion of health. Also incredibly useful as well. And then overclock and load while you're amplified or have bolt charge. Arc weapons gain increased handling and reload speed. So the Carrionus becomes an absolutely insane weapon with all those changes, and it's one that I think is very useful no matter what build you are running, just because of how good it is overall. And it's something that I am a massive fan of. The basic gameplay loop for this, depending on the activity, especially if the boss spawns right away, you can either pop your super or start killing the boss and or enemies with your microcosm. Lead with one of those. Now you do want to try to get amplified first or bolt charge, so maybe start off by getting a couple kills. Make sure you have that arc buff before you pop your super to maximize your damage. Now in some activities it's not going to matter, but when you're playing, like I'm using Expert Court of Oryx for the gameplay footage, that is where it's very, very important that you melt the bosses as quickly as possible. Just keep in mind, some bosses do have health gates, so there will be limits to how much damage you can do, but a lot of them don't, and a lot of them you can simply burn down. You'll see it in the footage where I can kill the 3 wizards, for example, instantaneously. And then if I do that, if I don't get the kill on all 3, I can swap to my microcosm, do a bunch of damage, and then I will get Transcendence pretty rapidly. And if there's too many ads overwhelming me, I'll switch to my other trace rifle and start jolting all the enemies, getting a bunch of arc traces if I need to, and then essentially moving on from there. So it's a nice little fun gameplay loop in my opinion, and it's pretty versatile. This build can be used across all different types of content. Now in like a Grandmaster or other piece of content like that, you just really have to be careful about burning through your heavy ammo, so you will be a little bit more judicious with that. However, because you're able to get Transcendence so quickly, because you're able to use your Carrionus in order to jolt targets all the time and do a lot of damage and have a ton of ammo with overflow in the mag, it does feel like that's not really as much of an issue as some other builds. You have a ton of ammo and ability options, and because you have all of that, you're able to essentially spam your abilities until you get refilled with your ammo, and you get some ammo drops, which is very, very nice. And one of the things that I found as well is that because I am using Transcendence so often with this as well, then I'm able to essentially get almost like 5 or 6 charges of my consecration at a given time, and it feels absolutely insane. It's very, very silly, and that allows me to kind of spam it while also healing consistently, and it's just a very fun gameplay loop in my opinion, with a lot of ways to not only burn bosses but complete content in a very easy manner. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. This build is a pretty straightforward way to do not only boss melts, for anybody can do it. Like, it doesn't require a lot of setup. There's other bait and switch type of combinations. There's other ways to do more damage, but they do require a lot more setup, whereas this one's pretty easy. Get amplified, get bull charge, pop your super, use microcosm, rinse and repeat, and then go from there. And if you like ease of use builds and you like using weapons maybe you haven't really focused on a lot, like trace rifles, this is going to be one for you. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like the video as always, comment, subscribe. Have a good one, and I'll catch you all later.